everybody for coming. Oh, recording in progress. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming to this impromptu meeting. I'm going to try to keep it fairly short. But Louisa and I have been communicating about, as work for version 31, version 30, I'm not getting ahead of myself, as work for version 30 starts winding down. We had discussed that something we want to try this time is having kind of the entire Turnip team working to wrap up version 30 before the entire team moves on to version 31. And we want to see how that goes. So as part of that, then we are going to be asking up to 3 of the developers to help with QA. The reason I'm limiting it to 3 is that, first of all, I think that we are going to probably continue to have bugs for other folks to work on. But also, I think it could get a little bit chaotic. Like even adding 3 people to the QA team temporarily, I think is going to be a little chaotic. So, and then having, potentially a lot of different people working on different areas of the regression script and that sort of thing. So, just trying out, seeing how it goes with 3. It sounds like we're starting to run down on the work that's currently in the sprint in Jira, which means that people might start freeing up and being able to help with QA. I also anticipate that as we get through the regression testing, then we're probably going to turn up bugs for people to have to work on. But we'll see how that goes. So I wanted to have a meeting where we just kind of go over some of the QA resources and start to figure out like what's the best way to help developers to start doing QA work. I'm sure that there are things I probably should say in this meeting that I'm going to forget to say. So we can just communicate and ask and talk to each other as we start doing this. All right, I'm going to share my screen. And I have a new QA document that I probably should have made a while ago, but I just made it this morning. So it is called Some Testing Principles. And I will put a link to this in the chat. These are all things that like we as a QA team have talked about, but we never actually had a document that said them before. So now we have a document. So this process is actually helping with our QA process. So and we can send this out separate from the chat too. So if folks need the link. I just want to kind of go over some general principles before I get into any specifics of regression or integration testing. And QAs, Dev and Eliana, if you think of any kind of like basic principles that we talk about or that we follow that I don't have here, let me know. And I can add it to the list. So 1, never test with an account that has more permissions or capabilities than needed. Probably the main example of this is if you're testing something in the authoring interface and you don't need to be an admin, don't be an admin. If you're testing something and you need to be a content admin, don't be an account admin. Just have whatever is like kind of the lowest amount of permissions and capabilities that you should have. We do sometimes see things that will work if you have kind of greater capabilities, but most of our users aren't admins and don't have lots of extra capabilities. So we want to kind of simulate that as much as possible. Just an author who's only an author or an instructor who's only an instructor going in and kind of interacting with the interface. Next, most of our testing should happen in Google Chrome. That is our primary browser that we support. We sometimes do like ad hoc testing or kind of extra testing in other browsers, but to the extent that we're trying to kind of get through tests and we don't have extra time, then we're going to stick with Google Chrome. For any test feature that has a UI component, we should be sure to kind of look both in light and dark mode. We do see a fair amount of kind of minor bugs that come up just because something doesn't look right in one of those modes or the other, usually dark mode. So just to kind of a quick look through for anything that is hard to read or doesn't have contrast. We just had yes, Nico.
Just to mention that lately we've been working on some tickets that do not have a light mode or dark mode. Sometimes we have the dark mode and no light mode, or the other way around. So just to reinforce that we really need both designs.
Oh, you mean from Jess?
Yes.
Louisa, can you kind of make a note to mention that to Jess? I had thought that she was doing light mode and dark mode for most of her tickets, but I mean that's definitely a valid point that
Yeah,
um
and one last thing is that we've already talked about this, but let me just point it out again that whenever we replicate a design, there's two ways to position different cards in the layout. One is an absolute positioning, and the other one is the relative.
mhm.
We really use less time whenever we have relative positioning, and when we have absolute, we have to like do some maths, and the process takes longer.
I mean, relative is also better for responsiveness generally. So I think valid point. Could you also include that in your note to Jess, Louisa? And like we might need to just get Louisa, not Louisa, you're Louisa. We might need to get Jess to have kind of a quick chat or opportunity to kind of talk about these issues with the team. That sounds like it would be a good thing in terms of getting ready for version 31. Okay. All right, unless otherwise specified, tickets with a design document attached should look and function exactly as designed. If the developer, I mean, I would say even if there's not a design document, like ideally the ticket should be describing kind of exactly how something should work. If the developer needed to depart from the design, then it should have been discussed with the designer during implementation and updated so that by the time a ticket comes to QA, it's really accurately describing what the QA should be seeing. So when you are doing testing, if you're seeing something that looks different, then that is, even for a fairly minor difference, you probably should bring it up. Content updates must be reflected in master documents. So I don't think that you guys are going to be doing anything with a release checklist, but if you're doing integration testing, there might be moments where you have to check something in the regression script. Actually, I think that I'm probably going to ask you guys not to make updates to the regression script. Like that would probably be a better thing once you're a little bit more familiar. So this one you can probably ignore if you are not a QA that just don't make updates to our documents. And if you think an update should happen, then maybe flag a QA and ask them about it. And finally, if you're not sure about something asked, I would rather that our testing go slow or kind of be held up than you do something that you think might be the wrong thing. So if you're looking and you don't know what to do, please ask. And correspondingly, since we have developers who are going to be guest QAs, let's everybody try to be pretty responsive if we see questions from them so that as they're kind of figuring stuff out, then we can get questions answered quickly and keep testing. Any questions about what I just went over? Okay, so all of the documents I'm going to be talking about are in our Tours QA folder on Google Drive, and I do have a link in this document to try to make that simpler. So ideally, like the only thing you need is a link to either a link to this document, or actually, if we look at the Tours QA folder, the some testing principles is it. So you only need one of these links, and you should get everything, either this document that links to the folder or the link to the folder. So the main documents here I'm going to talk about are integration test checklist, our regression master document, and then we do have some instantiations of that. I don't think anything else we're going to go over. I'm going to quickly show you the integration test checklist, but I actually, when Louisa and I talked about it this morning, I thought I might ask some of the QAs to do integration testing, and I actually think it would be more useful if you guys start with helping with our early regression. It's called an early regression because we're not in code freeze yet, so we are going to need to restart like a real regression once we're in code freeze. But the early regression just means as development work is still going on, let's kind of get through some of the regression and see if we can turn up some bugs. And we've made really much less progress through the early regression than we would ideally. I mean, ideally, it would have been great if we could be like through an early regression now. We're mostly through it. It's been really challenging because we've had such a backup in the integration testing column. So I think I'm going to ask our QAs to focus on getting through integration testing as much as possible and ask the developers who are helping out to do to work on the early regression. But just really quickly, in case this does come up, we do have a checklist. I'm not going to go over it because I want to keep this meeting quick, but you can look at it and ask questions if you have them later. When you're integration testing, this is what we expect our QAs to do. And Louisa is actually working, has recently, we plan to start working on building this actually into Jira so that the QAs actually have to kind of check off things as they go through it. But for right now, it's just a separate Google Doc. But the main thing I would like the QAs to help with is regression. We have our regression master document here. So anytime we need to make changes, we should be making that to the master document. And then when we're actually doing a run through of regression testing, then we make a copy of it. And we never actually record test progress in the master document. That is always kept blank just to be a template. Right now, what we are working on is this early regression. So Eliana did make this document that I think is for when we start our actual like post code freeze regression. We're not doing anything with that. We're working on the early regression because we're still working on code. This document is made as much as possible to be explained. Like we don't want people to have to kind of guess what to do. So we do try, if we look in some of these test cases, it's trying to kind of give you step by step what you should be doing. It's not perfect by any means. So as you're going through, if you're not sure what to do, just ask if you're looking at a test case and it's unclear, like where you should be going, what page you should be on. But for the most part, it's just kind of going through test case. There should be steps here. It should say what role you should be in. And then let me find, I think the main thing that we've made progress on here is the smoke test part of it. You can see that we have the tester executing. A lot of this has been David. He has a result. So basically, if you're seeing what you would like expect to see, the system is behaving as you expect, then you would pick passed. You can also say it's failed or passed with issues, which we would expect you to kind of give a explanation of what the issues were. You don't necessarily need to use the in progress unless for some reason you have a long test or you have to like go take a break or something, just so that another tester doesn't grab that test case, basically. If you're just kind of going through them quickly, then you're probably going through quickly enough that that you don't need to use the in progress. And one thing that we will try to do is have different people in different areas of the regression so that we don't have confusion about who should be doing this test case. We'll have you try to be in a place where you're just going to kind of go row by row through your section. We also have dates here and then notes. Again, if it's passed with issues, like here is a place where David passed with issues. Web pages are refusing to connect, and he's actually putting a ticket that he filed. So he's saying the actual case passed, but he found something that he's filing as a bug and he put it there. If you find bugs, it should go here. So you'll see that they started to record bugs that were that they filed as they found as they go through the regression. Then we have this nice central place of all of the bugs that were found while going through this regression. You would just put a link and then kind of a brief description of what the issue is. I'm trying to think of what else I should be telling you guys. Does anyone have I'm gonna go over like what the assignments are gonna be. And I did ask Eliana to come up with some assignments that are maybe some of the less complicated parts of the regression script that we can ask developers to go through. So I will get to that in a minute. But any questions on what I've gone over so far in the regression script? All right. I'm sure you guys will have questions as you get in. Again, we'll try to be, I think everyone needs to try to be responsive to that and to the extent possible, kind of pay attention to QA questions. All right, Eliana, did you get a chance to kind of mark off those areas that you think are good candidates for the developers to work on?
Yeah, in the regression script, not the early regression script, I highlighted.
Oh, in the main, yeah, because we had talked about them doing it to the okay. Let's go look there, and we can maybe copy whatever you did into the early regression.
Yeah, everything that's yellow, I think, it's easy enough for the devs to test. I didn't highlight anything in the smoke test just because there are no steps to reproduce there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
But for the early regression, we're through the smoke test anyway, so I think that's good. Eliana, do you think that you could go and just everything that you've highlighted yellow, just highlight it in the early regression as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like we've got some admin, some project, some publishing. Um, I don't know if anyone's going to start regression testing yet, but if you're at a place where you're a developer and you want to, and you're free up to start helping with regression testing, why don't you just ask us, like ask a QA or ask in the development channel, I guess, hey, like where should I start? And we'll tell you where to start. And then if someone else asks, we'll tell them to start someplace else on a different tab. That is
I have
really, go ahead.
no, I have a question just regarding priorities
Mhm,
because there are a few tickets in progress. I am working on a certificates ticket right now. Should
mhm.
I finish that ticket first and then
Yes.
move? Okay,
So that's a great question, Gaston. So this is work that I want up to 3 developers, and one of them I think is going to be Anders, so it would be up to 2 YWorks developers to do instead of moving on to version 31 tickets. So any actual development work that would be part of your regular job, be it working on a ticket that's in the to-do or in progress, doing a code review, and like anything that you would do as part of your regular job for version 30, you should still be doing. It's just if you're running out of things to do, whereas in previous releases, we'd start having you working on tickets for the next release. Now we're going to ask you to help out with testing so that we are all kind of still working on version 30 together.
okay, sounds good.
All right. I didn't have anything else to share. Does anyone else have any questions?
I just had a question
Mhm.
about what integration testing means. I mean, in a sense, all our testing is integration testing when we test the whole system.
Integration testing is for specific tickets that are in. So when you're testing a ticket that's in the QA column,
Yeah,
that's integration. It's like integrating of that feature into the system, and then we would call this regression testing.
oh, I see. Okay, so all right,
It's kind of more comprehensive testing is regression testing.
all right, just okay. Typically, you might test some component in isolation, and then you test it with the rest of the system, and the latter is the integration testing. But okay, I got it. It's just
Um,
as opposed to regression testing.
sure, or as opposed to like unit testing or
Unit testing,
yeah,
but unit testing is not what we do in QA. So,
correct.
yeah.
The main testing that we do is integration testing for a particular feature, and then regression testing. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Anything else?
So for the QA testing, helping with the QA, is there what documents did you share the documents earlier before I joined? Or?
So first of all, Raphael, we were not planning on asking you or Eli to do QA testing. First of all, because you've done a lot of it in the past, so and I know it's not your favorite, but also because you and Eli tend to be working on a lot of other things. So we wanted to make sure that you're not kind of getting pulled away. But also, as you know, we identified bugs, then you would be part of the group that might be able to help with the bugs if you're not pulled away into something for like legacy or DevOps or something else. But I can still answer your question, which is, so all of our documents are in this QA Google Drive folder. I can put the link for this in the chat. And I also previously shared the link for this document, which is some testing principles. And it actually has the link in it to the Taurus QA folder. So if you have either of these links, then you can get to everything else. Does that answer your question, or do you want me to go over any other documents?
That answers my question.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, as you free up and don't have any version 30 tasks to do, then Anders and up to 2 YWorks developers will help out with our regression. So just post in Slack and we will tell you where in the regression script to help. And if you have any other questions about QA, post in Slack and we will help you. And that's all I got. Thanks, everybody.